Hello? Glad you made it.
Are we live?
Welcome to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen,
may I introduce?
Through the magic of television.
So why did you email me, Youngie? Why did you message me and go like, McAleer, I want to do Bermuda Triangle?
Should I tell you why?
Yeah, tell me why.
Our viewers on Spotify will get to enjoy this moment because for Christmas I got this T-shirt from my girlfriend.
Nice.
And it's from the year of this TV special. For our unfortunate subscribers on Apple who can't watch the video, that was a David Copperfield T-shirt which I just showed to the camera. And so I just sort of went back and had a look at it, and I was like, we should do a proper deep dive on this, because the thing that's amazing about your podcast is seeing how much ground we're covering every week. And I know sometimes when you talk to various guests, they're going, oh, well, that one's already been taken, unfortunately. You know, somebody else has already done that one. And this TV special, no one will ever pick this other than me.
No,
and it does. Right. it does deserve some coverage. So I thought it would be nice to sit down with my friend McAleer, who I used to work with on Champions of Magic, and chat about this early in January when there's frankly nothing going on.
Absolutely nothing going on.
And so this is quite an exciting day, though, because this is for those watching on Spotify or those on Spotify. You'll know that this is a video through the magic of television. The first one which we've done.
Yeah.
And so if you're used to just listening on Spotify while the video plays, I think it's going to be worth watching this one, because we're going to overlay lots of clips, and we got some interesting things that we found that we can talk about. But that's why I chose it. But I mean, I did feel for you ultimately. As soon as I chose it, I'm like, you're going to have to watch this. Let's be honest, you're a mentalist, so I'm not.
There's not even him revealing a telephone number in this. It's all just illusions.
Yeah.
I mean, it opened strong, and I really like the Bermuda Triangle bit. This is one. You know how I started the podcast is because I just sat down and binged watched all of the Copperfield specials I could find, and I knew this was the one that was kind of the least favorite. In fact, it's his least favorite.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I watched it. I watched the ending bit. Went, that was good. I liked that for 1989 or whenever this was actually made. 88, this came out in America. 89 in the UK. I was just like, that's good. It's like a little mini drama. It's like a little mini film at the end. That's exactly what Copperfield does best. All of the music is spot on. Just a solid Copperfield special. It's not his best. It's not his most remembered one. But you know, if you've walked through the Great Wall of China before this and vanished the Statue of Liberty, your legacy's done.
And I think that's what was going on here, actually. And I don't know this. I'm only speculating. But as you can see on the screen behind me, this was the magic of David Copperfield 10. Used to number them like it was the Super Bowl or WrestleMania. To be honest, this was bigger to me than either the Super Bowl or WrestleMania every year, David Copperfield special. But I think you're right. I think the fact that they were 10 years in, they probably went, we've got to mix this up a bit, haven't we? How can we can't just vanish a bigger thing. Like, what can we do? And so I think that's probably where something like this came. I don't know. I regret that when I did interview him. I wish I'd have asked where this idea, if this even came from. I don't know. Did you watch this with Jack, by the way, your son? Or did you just watch it by yourself?
He's super busy with GCSE work. So I did have an idea, from Chris Harding, which was maybe Jack should have like a right to reply in the follow-up podcast. So he watches it and listens to the podcast and then goes like, here's why this was shit, according to a 15-year-old.
I mean, the most amazing thing about Jack McAleer, the 15-year-old, is I've had more complaints about Jack McAleer than I have Neb and Harry from his Siegfried and Roy podcast, which I just think is wonderful. And he got people talking.
Yes.
And that's what I care about. You sat and had to watch this by yourself. By the way, something I should just mention is give thanks to Duncan Trillo. So I went back and revisited this, and I'm sure you've put a link in the thing, and it will be to the Magic Week listing of this, which is on YouTube. Obviously, Magic Week is our great UK weekly newspaper here, which all the magicians visit every Saturday morning. Sometimes I'm so excited by it, I even visit it late on Friday night because I know it gets uploaded at midnight. And
good tip.
It's Duncan's YouTube channel, and when I clicked on it, the first thing you see when you press play is that it was obviously a VHS recording from BBC One. And I was like, what? No, it was shown on ITV, wasn't it? Because my memory is in the mid-90s when I first got into magic and I first fell in love with everything David Copperfield, is that this was shown on ITV just after Christmas during the daytime. And I was sure of that memory. But I'm like, well, there's the proof. Duncan Trillo's listing is showing it on BBC One. Maybe I've misremembered this. So I emailed Duncan. And Duncan is a hero, as we all know. And he emailed me back this website, which I didn't know about, called Genome. Do you know about this website?
No.
It's fascinating. And if you go on it, you will lose an hour of your life. It lists all of the TV listings from like 30, 40 years ago.
Wow.
So literally you can look and you can see 6 o'clock was the news, 7 o'clock was Noel's house party. Then we watched Big Break. Then it was, it was like... and it's amazing to look at. And so, sure enough, if you go on this website, Genome, and you type in David Copperfield, it comes up when it was broadcast on BBC One. And according to Genome, was first broadcast in the UK, obviously, this is, on Thursday, the 14th of September, 1989 at 9:30 p.m. And it was on BBC One. So it was, subsequently, I've looked into it, it was also shown on ITV 6 years later in 1995.
Because I always associate most magic things as being on ITV. Daniels was BBC. It was only Daniels on BBC. So, yeah. And you pointed out when we were chatting before that the Copperfield owns all of his specials very wisely. It's not some TV company or production company. So he must have sold them, in the mid-90s. He was really big again in the mid-90s, like he was in the late 70s, early 80s. He got even more famous in the 90s. So he must have sold them to ITV because they would have had more money than the BBC.
I think so. And do you know what? You just mentioned Paul Daniels. So here's the thing, we'll never know. But, I mean, Paul Daniels would not have been happy about this, would he?
No.
Like, seeing David Copperfield's TV specials pop up on the channel that he's on. Like, Paul was a very confident man. I'm sure he would have been very blasé about it, but I would have been worried. I remember years ago, do you remember when Ben Earl got a TV series on Channel 4?
Yeah, Trick Artist, yeah.
There's no way that Darren Brown wasn't watching how that rated. No way.
Absolutely.
Like,
well, in the Christmas special with Barry, when they were making their stuff, there was stuff they weren't allowed to touch, especially mentalism stuff, because Darren might do something with that. Because he was kind of the golden boy of magic on Channel 4 in the early 2000s.
Yeah. So the other thing we should mention before we really get into this is that the version that is on Duncan's YouTube channel, it's not the full special. There are some missing pieces from it, which, if it's okay, I would love to touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's chat about them where I assume they would come in the special as well.
So the very beginning of the show, you won't know this, was Lisa Hartman, who is the celebrity guest on this TV special. And I looked into her because I've never heard of her before or since, because obviously we're from England. But she was a singer and an actress, very popular in the 80s by the looks of it. And so she opens the TV special. I can do a little script if you'd like. I remember it because I know this. It's a hot night in the Virgin Islands, and it's about to get hotter because David Copperfield is going to take us on a journey to the Bermuda Triangle. You'll see magic that defies explanation, and you'll see it just as if you were here with me. No camera tricks, no video effects. Just the unique skill of the greatest magician of our time. Tonight, the mysterious and deadly forces of the Bermuda Triangle are going to be challenged by the magic of David Copperfield. And that's where the YouTube video starts straight after that.
Got you.
So that is actually the opening to the show, and it's actually the celebrity.
Which is the same kind of format as most of his specials. It would have someone famous talking down the lens of the camera, and it would always end with the magic of David Copperfield. And I love that she's
on the beach. She's on the beach in this. Yeah, she's on the beach.
Is that the same clip that's shown later in this particular version of the special, the 40-minute edition? Because she does sort of say something like that. These unknown forces have to face the magic of David Copperfield.
Well, I think this is something we're going to touch on, because she does come back and she tells a story about the Bermuda Triangle and some planes disappearing. And I think, and I don't know this, but I think, and David has said this on the podcast, because if you don't know, I did get David to talk about this on the podcast, which I did with him years ago, is that I think just the clarity of what was going on isn't really there. So I love this TV special, but there's a lot to explain. Yeah. And a lot of process, because I think he probably knew that, like me as a kid watching it, I didn't know what the Bermuda Triangle was. Yeah. So it needed explaining. And so there's a lot of this through the special, isn't there?
Yeah, because also like the late 80s, early 90s, like paranormal stuff like that was fairly popular. Like X-Files was on TV in the 90s and stuff. So people might have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but not really know what it means. Stuff disappeared there. So they do have to do a lot of exposition. And in fact, much later in the
A
show,
lot.
there's like a CSI style, or not even CSI style, but when there's just like some little props to explain some exposition for the viewers at home as to what the Bermuda Triangle is, what a fourth dimension is.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, I love it, but yeah, some of it's indefensible. Some of it, frankly, a lot of it actually. If I'm being honest, maybe I sound like a crazy fanboy, but a lot of it, I don't think it's him actually.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people involved in this. And if you watch the credits go up at the end, there's lots of people who are writers. And,
there's a written by credit.
yeah, like
directed
this
by
stuff
credit.
like that. And yeah. So there's a lot of it. I just go, yeah, I don't know, but that's my guess. Also, I'd like to dispel a rumor that I started. So this is interesting. I think people will really get a kick out of this. We're going to talk a bit about method of this, and I know some people get pretty angry when we talk about method. But I'm gonna caveat by saying I'm wrong about this. I've subsequently realized. So I thought for many, many, many years that the real magic behind the big Bermuda Triangle stunt at the end is that it wasn't filmed out at sea.
Mm-hmm.
I was under the impression, an impression that I gave myself, that it was filmed in that tank that they filmed Titanic in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
That looks a bit like the sea, but it's actually just a massive tank that you can build sets in. It's used for movies like Waterworld and things like that. But there's a big problem with my theory with that, which is that if you watch the next thing that comes up on the screen, there's a helicopter shot. It's this moment right here that you're seeing on the screen behind me. A helicopter does a big fly round and over, and you can see it's out at sea. It's not in a tank. So I was wrong. So I'm sorry. Because it was me that spread that rumor.
Because I thought that too. And then I just remembered just now you told me that. So
yes, there you go. Oh, dear.
So yeah, should we get into it? So the opening, we've heard the
Yeah.
real opening from Lisa Hartman. But this is like, it's like all of Copperfield stuff. It's really cinematic. The music's really cinematic. There's lots of music from Aliens in this. He's just,
Yep.
I assume it all comes from him because behind the scenes people have changed over the years. So it can only be him. And the music's great. And you see this triangle truss seemingly in the middle of the ocean. I'm not sure it's the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It might just be off the coast of Miami or something if they are actually around that area.
I don't know. I'm sure it's not too far out, put it that way. Like, but it's definitely out at sea. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
definitely no
having
doubt
heard
about
your podcast with him, that's part of the issues of why it's not a great special. Is as soon as you go out to sea, it's an absolute nightmare to film anything, let alone do large-scale illusions. This must be an absolute nightmare. But yeah, we just get the premise that he's gonna try attempt to return. He's gonna disappear in the Bermuda Triangle and be the first ever person, place, or thing to just return from there. That's the premise of the special. But as usual, it's time to go off to Caesar's Palace and do some illusions. There's not much of Caesar's Palace in this, or much theatre stuff in this. He has got the good old scrim with some clouds on. He loves some clouds on a scrim. Did Copperfield. But then, and as normally on the podcast, I like Nick Capo to try and be the voice of Copperfield's fashions. Maybe I'll get him back for this, but he's a busy man. But I just want to comment on the big baggy white shirt that he's wearing when we first see him. Like he's just rolled out of bed. He's just
he's literally wearing slippers as well, if my memory is.
Big slacks, as they call them in the States. A massive white shirt.
Yeah.
And somehow
it looks like he's just come down from the suite upstairs, doesn't he? Like, 5 minutes before the show.
David. Oh, shit, I better go. And he goes downstairs. And as usual, somehow he manages to find a very attractive woman out in the audience to borrow something from. The lovely Barbara. He borrows a bobby pin because he's going to try and use that hairpin to escape. Like we all work out, some shackles are being examined. And he says the line, as you probably guessed by now, I'm going to do an escape, but like you've never seen before. And that's probably the first time a magician said something like that, and it's been true. Because this is death saw time. And then fucking I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight comes on. There's a fan blowing in his face. It's just This is like, as soon as that came on, I was like, oh yeah, this is the one with Death Saw in. This is fantastic.
Yes, yes. And also, here's the big thing for me. This is the full version of Death Saw.
Yeah.
The thing that always pops up on YouTube is actually the slightly edited down version from his 15 Years of Magic TV special. This is, you should watch this. Everybody loves Death Saw, right?
Yeah.
One of possibly the greatest illusion of all time. It's often voted as such. But you should go and watch this. This is the full version with cutting crew, Died in My Arms Tonight, and much more explanation in terms of the setup for the escape. To really make it believable that he's going to try and escape.
Yeah,
Whereas when you see the other version,
premise is he's going to
just
escape, and it goes wrong, and he fixes it with
Exactly.
magic. Yeah.
And so at the very beginning of this, if you watch the full version, you'll see the lady come out with a rod with all the padlocks on, which gets examined. That lady, by the way, is the late, great Joni Spina, who was David's choreographer for a long time. That's Joni. And she walks out, gets the padlocks examined. And then there's a moment after David bangs the saw with the hammer. He goes down to the front of the stage and he explains what he's going to do. And I think it's a really, really important bit that probably got cut out on the 15 Years of Magic special for time, would be my guess. But the whole premise is that. Also, this is something else I should mention. This room that this TV special was filmed in is the Circus Maximus stage at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Fast forward 6 years, this is where Lance Burton filmed his first TV special. So, yeah, it's a room with a lot of history, magic. Copperfield performed in there for years. Lance Burton's TV special, etc. So, not there anymore, unfortunately, but a very beautiful room.
Yeah, it's lovely. It looks like how I picture all big American specials. Magic is in my head. It's always in that room. And this is also one of those illusions, the Death Saw, that most, even laymen, think they know how it works. They think his legs are in the feet, and they think someone's folded up over a contortionist or someone who's bendy. And then a friend of mine said that to me a little while ago, and I was like, okay, go on your YouTube and find the clip, and then look at where you think the person is, and they look and go, oh, because they've seen that little illustration when they go online or the Wikipedia page about sawing in half, and they go, oh, they can't be in there. It's like, no, they're not, and they're looking at it going like, well, where's his bottom half? I mean,
Exactly.
I'm not really sure.
Doesn't work. Yes. And also, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to think that they were fake animatronic feet, which they're not.
No.
So, yeah, there's some... And also, here's a lovely thing which you should give some thought to. Even if you think you know how the Death Saw's done, where do the feet go at the end of the trick?
Yeah.
When he stands up and they open the table, there's nothing there. It's a very overlooked moment. That's a fucking convincer and a half, that. Of like whatever you thought it was, just been blown out the water. If you thought it was
just thick enough to hide half a person, where's their other half now gone? Yeah,
exactly. This trick has been talked about and will be talked about forever. I really believe that it's possibly one of the greatest things he's ever done. The visuals of this, I think you can almost attribute to him selling millions and millions of tickets. I think it's moments like this in his career where people go, I'd love to see this show live. Is he coming to town? He's coming to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Is he? Great. Let's go and see him. And so I think these kind of moments, these high production moments, these tricks. I mean, the other thing is I'd love to know, on reflection, bearing in mind what's going to happen at the end of the special, the bit which he said himself he doesn't really look back on with a lot of great joy. Should actually this TV special have been built around the Death Saw?
Yeah, the escape.
That's the thought, isn't it? Should it have been built up all through the special? It's brilliant that it's the first thing, but Jeffrey Durham always says you should do your best trick first.
Yeah.
Some magicians disagree, but actually you do look at it now and go, bear in mind the Bermuda Triangle thing is not fondly remembered in the same way of a lot of his other work, especially the work that comes over the next 5 years. The flying, the vanishing of the train car, the upside down straitjacket escape, they're all coming over the next 5 years. This TV special, some people say, is a bit of a blip in the record. But 9 brilliant specials. This one, maybe not, but it's got Death Saw on, which saves it. But the next 5 years coming are just, I think they just get better year after year after year. So I think it's interesting from that point of view.
Yeah, definitely. And people are just, there's obviously, there's all the moments. Also, I just wanted to point out the fact that, we all think they're fake feet because everyone knows it's fake feet. if you see the feet. And when he gets separated, those feet remain perfectly still until the move the feet moment. Like
Yeah.
every moment. And then when he's covered, uncovered, covered again, then uncovered, it's playing with the audience. They know exactly what the audience are thinking, how they think it might be working, and just keep knocking down those preconceived ideas. Like, it's just perfect.
Year 2000, he put out a DVD called Illusion, and it had an audio commentary on it. And David himself talks over the illusions on the DVD.
You can find some of them on YouTube, can't you?
Yes, you can. And he does say and admit that it was actually just one night someone shouted it out. And he said he felt so relieved because he knew the feet were going to move. And then subsequently from there, they kept that in every night. Someone would shout it out from the back. It's a great moment.
Yeah, perfect. And that final image, we're just punching in the air. Wait, he holds it, then punch, pyro, blackout. Looking like an absolute rock star.
Here's a thought. Oh, there's one final thought I have on Death Saw, is that it's often mentioned that it's, a great sawing in half trick or it's an escape. I would love to debate this with someone who's interested. I would say actually it's a time travel trick.
Yeah,
and if you go and see Copperfield show in Vegas now, the alien is a time travel trick. And David said to me on the podcast that he's very proud of that magic has a time travel trick that didn't exist before. I would say that's what this is. He goes back in time and everything gets put right. That's what you do with time travel, isn't it? Like,
because in your interview with him, he mentions he wanted a motivation as to why he gets put back together again. Because you don't often think about it, other than the fact that you have to show the girls are right at the end. It's because how can he motivate that? I know, go back in time, but it's not just like the clock starts going back and he magically moves back together and the things fold up on their own. Like, he's going back in time. It's not just
brilliant.
Let's do everything again, but in reverse. It magically happens. It's great. And then there's Lisa Hartman again telling us some facts about the Bermuda Triangle. Hundreds of ships disappeared. And then now it's proper 80s, where this is the category of David Copperfield trick, which is, this is what it would be like to go on a date with David Copperfield.
It's so good.
He's on his yacht. He's in the baggiest of white jumpers. White was obviously big in 88. And he does the goofy sunglasses appearance with the little extra hand gimmick thing. You could just absolutely tell that's what it is. Especially in Duncan's version, where it looks like he's upscaled it. So it's a lot clearer than even when people watched it back in the 90s or the 80s. And there's a wig at one point, slightly questionable in 2025. If you should be wearing that wig as a white man.
It's a Rasta wig.
Yes, a Rasta wig. They go for a horse ride on the beach. And then some guy does that sort of vanishing leg trick. Then Big DC himself one-ups it. So he makes both of his legs vanish. And it's certainly much better than when Chris Angel ripped it off. I wanted to mention this as well. Then it's nighttime on the beach. They're by a fire. He takes a piece of coal and then magically turns it into a diamond. But there's light.
Coal to diamond.
Coal to diamond.
Classic.
And then
coal to diamond.
So there's smoke coming from his hand and it lights up as well. And this was in 1988. I know.
And you know what? I'm going to put this out there. I bet you see that pop up at Blackpool in the next few years because everybody loves a smoke gimmick, right? You've seen all versions of those. But smoke with a bright light in your hand? I mean, this is 1988, but I'm telling you, if that pops up at Blackpool next year, everyone is going to buy it. To combine the two things, bear in mind, this is, 35 years ago?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I watched it this afternoon. I'm like, oh my, that still looks
the nightmare of just getting it in one shot in 88 it's really well done.
Yeah.
Also, I think Copperfield loves Superman, right? Especially the Chris Reeve films. And in one of the Superman films, Superman takes a piece of coal, crushes it in his hand, like compresses it, and with his super strength turns it into a diamond. So I reckon this is a homage to
interesting.
That. Because a lot of Copperfield stuff is I want to fly like Superman. I want to do this. I want to do that. Yeah.
I watched this earlier. So this little vignette, I guess we could call it. There's a couple of things that spring to mind. First of all, this is kind of the era of MTV.
Yes.
And so it has the feel of like a music video, doesn't it? There's a
very
song
much.
playing and there's no talking. I'd love someone to correct me. I don't think he did anything else like this after this point again. Interestingly, the young lady that he's with on this date, I thought was a assistant that he used to use called Holly Ray. If you ever remember him doing the water levitation, that was Holly Ray, a great assistant that he had for a number of years. But actually, on the titles at the end, it's not her. It's the name on the titles is Dawn Marie Swatchick, who I googled, and no sign of her like she ever did anything else after that sort of thing.
Oh, really? I assumed she was a model actress or something. Yeah, just hired for it.
Yeah, me too. What I do find quite extraordinary about this is that David Copperfield is in charge of a yacht in this video.
Yeah.
My understanding is David Copperfield can't drive a car. He's never bothered to learn, because why would you if you're David Copperfield? You can sit in the back and have someone drive you.
Yeah.
So he can't drive a car, but he can run a yacht, which is very in line for a man of his financial stature, I think.
That's true. And then this is one of the clips missing from the Duncan Trillo one, is the abandoned castle with Lisa Hartman. I'm going to assume this is now a different date. Maybe it didn't go so well with the previous girl.
That's an interesting bit, but it's another girl. How many girls are you dating?
This is the minor celebrity from the late 80s, Lisa Hartman. And this is a Don Wayne trick, because Don Wayne was his right-hand man at this point, right?
Well done. How did you know that? Because I had to really try and find this out, but you jumped ahead of me there.
In your podcast. Also, Don Wayne is mentioned in the credits at the end. And there was that period there. I always think it's Kenner. Kenner and Homer are his guys, but that was after this. Yeah, this was in the 90s.
Kenner and Homer didn't come on the scene till about 93, 94.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a distinct change, really, that happens. Like
yes,
a lot
there
of
is.
stuff
Yeah,
lot
more focus on comedy. A lot more focus on the comedy side 100%, of things.
Yeah, but this little floating match, or animated match, brilliant. I guess. There's so much that happens. And I bought
this when I was a kid. Do you know this?
No, it feels like it reminded me of like something you could buy, and you can sort of entertain yourself with, because you can. It was a product.
It was called Matchbox Follies. Yeah. And I remember buying it on eBay, and even when I bought it as a kid, it was already really old. The boat was secondhand. It was in a little box about this big, and I'm saying about sort of, I don't know, sort of 8 inches by 4 inches box, and yeah, you got everything in it. But the bit I just never got my head around was I mean, come on, this is a magician. If you're listening half an hour in, you know it's thread, right?
Yeah.
The thread for it was like fishing line. I never quite understood. Maybe the guy who sold it to me secondhand on eBay had lost the thread and just put in some fishing wire to kind of make it a complete set again. But the thread my memory of it is the thread was dreadful. But you did used to get the little matchbox that you could hold, and the little match would go backwards and forwards, and it would bend forward as well. And then it would float out of it was a different match, obviously. Yeah. It would float out of the matchbox. And it came with a ring as well, so you could put a ring over it. Brilliant trick. I wonder if anybody else ever did it. Not easy to do.
Well, I imagine, like, as soon as Copperfield did something and it was a marketed item, they sold like hotcakes. I mean, it even happened back in the 2000s when it was like Paul Zenon did something, Alakazam would sell out of whatever that was that he did.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah, but we're all guilty of that, aren't we?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I know so many ways to guess a coin that's in your hand. I never found a reason why to do it, but I have lots and lots of methods for doing that. And then we're back in the theatre. And this has been clipped out as well. I've seen this. I think they might have done this in a previous special as well, or maybe I've just seen it separately. But this is that kind of sucker trick when he gets a kid up called Adam. It's telekinesis with Webster, where Webster's going to move from one box to another box. And it's just one of the Copperfield cute comedy routines with a kid that has a good little twist at the end. And it is genuinely very funny. The sort of puppeteering of Webster as he goes back and forth between the boxes, for some reason, really tickles me. I don't know why. Especially when he can't get in the door when he's going to go back. It just cracks me up. And then there's that assistant guy again. You don't know his name, do you? But he's the one that looks a little bit like a young teller.
This guy, he's fascinating to me. Don't know who he is. He's the guy hidden behind the cloth. But he's in a lot of... I think he sort of disappears from the special, perhaps like a couple of years after this, or maybe one more he did. But he was brilliant. He had great comedy timing, great facial expressions. But then he would also be able to do the dramatic pieces with David, like the impaled and things like that. And he would put David on the impaled and let go of him. He was absolutely brilliant. Don't know anything about him. Don't know his name. But yeah, thought he was absolutely fantastic. This routine with the kid and the duck going backwards and forwards and then the guy disappearing. Honestly, I would love to do this routine with Strange.
Yeah, it would suit you both so well.
it's built for a double act, that
Yeah.
trick. And I just, Strange and I've talked about it over the years and gone, we just know we're nicking it. So that's why we've never done it. But it's just like, is there a way? When we all do this, we're all thieves, really, aren't we? You look at it and go, how could we do that different?
Yeah.
And
Like
you go, you can't
my
really.
friend saying, that's very stealable. That's very stealable. How can I
mean,
steal
it is.
that?
I mean, it's not kind of, I don't imagine many people remember it. Unlike the other duck trick he would do with the duck in the bucket, which he did for years. I think it was on 2 of his TV specials. It was in his Vegas show till, as long ago as like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I be honest, I think this is better. I really do. I love seeing him with a kid on stage. I think it's great. But yeah, like I said, I do look at this every time and go, oh, I'd love to do that for Strange. I think we could really do something fun with that. Like Strange behind the thing, getting it all wrong, and the kid nearly, me trying to be the straight man. Yeah, I would love to have done that, but it will never happen, unfortunately.
And then a trick that's missing, which I guess would have followed this, or perhaps come later, but it's all in the theatre. It's all to do with the ducks and everything. Is Poultry in Motion, where it's the very stolen. And indeed stolen by former guest Ali Cook, or borrowed, or influenced by. There was a bit of controversy. I remember Archer mentioning it. It completely slipped my mind. When I had Ali on the podcast, it completely slipped my mind to ask him about it. But he might come back on, so maybe I can ask him about it then. But it's essentially the same routine, putting off the head of a duck, pretty much.
Yes.
In puppeteering and everything is very similar.
That maybe it goes way back. I don't know the history of it. Maybe it was done before David, but I mean, at this point, I kind of go, here's the fact of the matter is, it's that old thing someone said, you're doing it because you saw that person do it.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to be honest.
I always use Hudson as that example of with the balloon and the bag over the head thing. You're doing it because you saw Hudson do it, not because you read that obscure Ali Bongo lecture notes.
Exactly, yeah. But look, Ali's great. And he's been on the podcast and everything. I don't know the history of it. I know when I interviewed David, I mentioned this sequence. He did say it had been stolen a lot over the years. He says the Got Talent shows on the interview, but I don't have any memory of anyone doing it on a Got Talent show. But yeah, of course, it's very stealable, isn't it?
So now it's time. Now it's time for the main stunt.
Well, not quite.
Not quite.
Sorry to say. There is another missing piece from this.
Is there?
Which is it's very quick, but it was the last thing before it when I saw it on ITV, and that was that he would come out and he would say, when last we saw Webster and Consuelo, they were all screwed up. I'm going to do something about that right now. And he would make Webster, they bring out a table, very thin table, and he build a box on the thing. And then Webster would reappear, Consuelo would reappear, and then he'd say, I can't leave you two lovebirds alone for a minute. And he would lift the box off the table, and there were baby ducks and chickens on the table, including one with a bow tie, and he would say, it's Webster Jr.
Yeah. Is this when they're also called like Louis, Tui, Turdy?
Yeah,
whatever?
you've seen it.
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah. Classic
but
Keith Copperfield.
Hard to find on YouTube at the minute, that bit. I don't know why. But it's probably there somewhere. But couldn't find it earlier when I was looking. But yeah, that's it. And then we're into the main event, which is the Bermuda Triangle thing. My understanding of this last stunt is that at the time, it was the most expensive one-segment piece of television that was ever made.
Really?
It cost again, these are just things I've heard, but I've heard it cost upwards of $1 million to make this segment. On the titles that go up at the end, it says that the thing was built by someone called Ed Kish of Kish Rigging. Looked it up. Still exists. So it still exists. They're open today for business in California. Whether Ed Kish is still around, I don't know.
Do you think they have somewhere like in the office just the bits of truss that we used for the pyramid?
So, do you know what I will say? Have you ever seen a more spectacular setup for what are effectively some magic tricks than this?
I know, right?
I mean,
and it really feels like, regardless where it is, it's in the middle of a large body of water. It's definitely the ocean as well. You can see the waves. There's the big truss that's there, and there's a smaller platform he's going to be on. Everything's triangle shaped. Even the little raft he's on at the end is a little triangle shape. And he just sort of has to. This is when he has to do a lot of the exposition of, here's what the Bermuda Triangle is, and here's sort of a little diorama of how it works, sort of, if you believe in the fourth dimension, that things can get sucked up into the sky but can't get back. He's going to try and come back and bring a boat with him because he's got the little paper cutting of this ship that was being tugged along and it vanished. It's quite a compellingly written story that apparently this first-hand account of the ship.
I mean, it doesn't stand the test of time, unfortunately. It's quite long. But you know what I will say is I think that at this point, 10 TV specials in, the audience would stick with him through stuff like this. I think he'd, at this point, built up such an amazing reputation and such a fan base that he could do something like this and tell a bit more of a story, which we know is what he loves to do more than anything else. My favourite bit of it is when he reads a story from the Santa Maria's logbook.
Yeah.
Which is from Christopher Columbus, who, of course, everybody here knows is the guy that directed Home Alone. I'm pretty sure that's not the logbook from the Santa Maria. That is the script for Home Alone. And in 1988, he was meeting very wealthy people to find financial backing. And that's what actually David's got in his hands here.
Yeah.
But yes, he reads out a bit from the Santa Maria logbook of this description of the Bermuda Triangle. And then, do you know what? Also, there's this little tiny moment that you almost miss it. But there's computer graphics in this. There's a moment where they show on the screen like a triangle, and they show all these like planes flying in, and then there's a flash, and they disappear. Stuff like that, where you go, that was pretty cutting edge for the time.
Yeah,
like,
for just a one-off TV show. This isn't like part of a series. Yeah. It's just an expensive hour of television.
Again, like another I think there would... I sort of look at this and I go, I love all this, but I think why he doesn't and why other people often don't is that it is all just a bit convoluted, isn't it? It's a bit long-winded and there's a bit too much of having to explain things. I mean, I love it all, and you can see the care that's been taken with the writing, even if it's not to your taste. You can't argue that a hell of a lot of thought was put into it all to make it as compelling and mysterious as possible. I personally love it. I know it's came along at a perfect time in my childhood, but I just find it like very interesting.
Yeah, it's a very compelling story, the Bermuda Triangle in general, but also this premise of he's going to be the first person to vanish into it and then escape. It's like crossing over to the other side and coming back. It's got like only David Copperfield could do that. It's a really exciting premise.
There's also, of course, the little model. You know, the little model.
Yeah.
Where he talks through. I mean, I want that so much. I want that. Like a couple of years ago, he's the radar thing from the Great Wall of China came up for auction. I don't know who owns it now, who bought it in the auction. There's something else came up in an auction recently, which was his, you know, the trick where you count round the screen.
Oh yeah,
that came up for auction as well. I've heard all sorts of rumours about that as well. If this ever comes up, I'll sell the house to buy that little model. I want to get that little David Copperfield thing and go through the bit of glass over here, and then you're going to go, and then I'll be back over here in a few minutes. Stay tuned. You know, I love it.
But also, they're justifying and motivating like certain props you have to have for an appearance, like big curtains, and those are there to keep the sound waves focused in on the spot. And like
3 gold frequency speakers.
Yes. Is that the sort of stuff you used to sell at Comet?
I was going to say, I used to work in Comet for our American listeners. That's the equivalent of Best Buy. It was my first ever job. And so I can assure you that in the late 90s, when I worked in Comet, we did not sell gold frequency speakers. So I can't offer you any sort of insights as to exactly what they did. But again, they look fantastic.
They do. They look premium. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the little... I was expecting, with the little diorama of the Bermuda Triangle, little David Copperfield, little boat, I thought there was going to be a little trick happen there. Which reminds me, Matt Pritchard's Science Magician do his Lego version of this appearance.
Absolutely love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was me that told him to do it.
Was it?
I don't know why he then actually took the time to do it, because he should have just said no. But he did it,
There's
and
a
it's
short
brilliant.
clip of it, which I've absolutely no idea how it works. All one shot. I had no idea.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
Very clever guy.
I love in this, though, the little tiny... He's got some objects, hasn't he, Copperfield? He's got a nut and bolt, some hardware from the original ship, a compass, and a little quivering bloke that's going to represent him.
Yeah, little wooden man.
Little wooden man.
That bursts into flames. No idea how it bursts into flames. Looks incredible.
No.
Whoever came up with that.
Also, it goes into this little pyramid. But what I love about this bit, which is why I think this whole special and this whole finale is actually quite good, is it takes twists and turns you don't expect. So the nut and bolt go in, and I was watching this going like, well, the nut's going to come off the bolt, isn't it? And it does, but it moves around. And then when he opens the door, it's vanished. Then with the compass, it starts really freaking out, going crazy. Opens it, boom, and that's vanished as well, like instantaneously. And then when the little man goes inside, it starts crumpling down like it's in pain, and then bursts into flames. Then when he takes it out and looks nervous that that's going to be him in a moment, it like is magnetically or mystically pulled from his hand boom, to the door of this little pyramid. And then it does it again, and then that's what pulls his arm in, and it's like cracks through, and there's this bright smoky light coming out, like from The Thing, like the opening credits of The Thing. And then he manages to pull his hand away. He's covered in this weird black goo. He's freaking out. And because he's lying down now, the entity can grab his legs and just pull him into the pyramid. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Then he just gets sucked into it like a piece of cloth into a hoover. Boom. Like a piece of grit. And then the doors fall open and he's gone. It's like, that was dramatic. That was exciting.
I said this to him when I spoke to him about this. I think it's his second best vanish that he ever did.
Really
I
good.
think the portal vanish is the best one, but I think this is the second best one. I think it's brilliant, and I didn't know how it was done for a very, 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 very long time. I remember looking underneath it, going, "Is that a mirror under there?" Or so. It's really not. Yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely
and it
brilliant.
looks like
the stunning vanish.
It was designed around how they wanted him to vanish. It wasn't like, this prop does this thing, how do we make you vanish like that? It's like, I want to be sucked in. And how do we build to that moment logically in a story with story beats? And then he gets sucked in. But yeah, it's a great vanish. It's terrifying. It's like being pulled under your bed by a monster. You know, that would...
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah,
it would have scared
I do
me.
wonder with this final sequence, this is the first and only time that he did something on television not in front of a live audience. And I wonder if it's affected a little bit like that. Now, of course, you can't really have a live audience out at sea. I guess maybe a decision was made that would look a bit weird, or how will that work? I guess I'm wrong. I guess the Alcatraz TV special, there weren't people in the prison, but he did have a live audience outside the prison.
Yeah.
When he was trying to escape. So, I wonder if some of its impact... It only occurred to me today when I watched it again. Maybe some of its impact is lessened a little bit by the fact that there's not a live audience there. Some of the believability, especially because it's edited to look like it looks like Die Hard at times, doesn't it? It's a proper action adventure. Yeah. And I think he fell in love with all of this, the kind of it looking like a movie. The Alcatraz special the year before is the same. It looks like a movie. But I wonder if at times that perhaps for some people in the audience, maybe a little bit more questionable. Could they believe what they were seeing, or did it all look too well edited or whatever? I don't know. Maybe at this point in the TV special, 50 minutes in, people are much more likely to suspend their disbelief because they've seen him do magic in the theatre earlier in the special, perhaps. Not sure.
I agree. Because also, this does remind me of the Alcatraz one, which was a mini movie. This is a mini movie, but it's not as compelling, despite the fact it should be. It's just not as... There's not as many beats as well. Like the Alcatraz one has, like he saves the cat, which is that golden rule of screenplays, save the cat. So yeah, it just doesn't quite hit the mark. And then it does. Then suddenly, he's gone. There's a fire. The whole thing catches fire. The little pyramid thing. Get the divers in the water, and then suddenly it's. And this is what.
But also, do you know what else is weird about this bit? And I had 2 hours with him in 2019. And I tried to touch on as much as I can, but I think I mentioned subsequently I had like 9 pages of notes, and I got to the end of the interview and I'd gone through 2.
Yeah.
Like this special in particular, I'd love to talk to him about it in more detail, because there's this decision that's made. I'd love to know who by. I'd love to know whether it was made before they even started recording or whether it was done in post. That if you watch this bit, there are 2 guys who are narrating.
Yeah.
During this bit, they're obviously meant to be the rescue workers or
Safety crew or
his crew.
something. Yeah.
But they're effectively narrating what happens. I assume maybe because David effectively is off camera for a long time here, and so, but he didn't do that with the Great Wall of China, and he's off camera there for a long time. So I'd love to know where that came from.
I think with the Great Wall of China, you know what's happening in your mind. You can imagine he is pushing through the solid concrete, and the same with. But it doesn't take long when he goes over Niagara Falls. It's oh my god, 2, 3, 4. Wait, there he is. There's no big pause. But yeah, I think I reckon that maybe that was in post. Though, like, it's not clear what's happening. People might just switch off. Is he dead?
These were big TV events, of course. Once a year. So I assume maybe they did do like test screenings in front of test audiences and got feedback, and so maybe that's where some things, if you watch some of his specials back, there was some clarity added. Maybe after a few test screens where they went, we really need someone to explain why it suddenly becomes dawn.
Yeah.
When I spoke to him, he does mention it's the briefest moment, but when I ask him about when he filmed this, he says one of his frustrations was light. It was running out of time with the light. They're outdoors, and he says about obviously the water is a nightmare. That adds so much trouble to the whole situation anyway. But yeah, the light being a big issue. But yeah, the fact that it's suddenly dawn. I mean, it makes that illusion. It wouldn't have worked at night making the boat appear because you would have just gone, well, it's black back there. Whereas it is done in broad daylight. Exactly. So maybe that decision was made, but then why wasn't the whole thing done during the day? And our friend Eddie is, I would say, we don't know.
We just
don't know.
But then
we just don't know.
The ship appearing, there's a good amount of sort of time killing that needs to happen with illusions where, like, David appears on his little derrily raft and then has to pull a rope to go back to the curtain, strike a pose, and then curtain down. And then there is what looks like a ship. Let's say it like that. There is what looks like a ship in that moment. And then it cuts to a wide of what is definitely a small ship.
When I was a kid and I used to go swimming, I used to get on a float and I used to pretend to be David Copperfield in the swimming pool. I knew all the choreography, pulling the rope, doing the big gestures. Nothing there, but that's what you do when you're a kid and you got a hero, isn't it? It's one of life's greatest pleasures.
Yeah,
when you're a kid. Yeah, and he did say on the interview that he wasn't happy with the boat. He said it looked too small. I think he said. Wonder where that thing is now. I know that he found the jet plane that he vanished. I think there's rumours flying around that he maybe is now aware where the train car is that he vanished in 1991, I think it was.
It doesn't even occur to me, but he didn't own those things at the time, did he? They would have just borrowed them for the special or hired them somehow, or they would have been built if they needed to be built. Yeah.
I think, as a lifelong David Copperfield fan, the dream David Copperfield Museum for me is when you walk in and you see plane, train car, boat from the Bermuda Triangle, all next to you. These are the things I
think maybe those three things shouldn't be next to each other, because then that boat, if it's the one that appears, won't look quite as good as the other. Won't look seaworthy.
It will not.
No,
definitely not.
Dear, I like this special. It's not my favourite of the Copperfield.
You do
special.
actually like it.
I do actually like it.
I'm surprised.
The Death Saw.
You're a mentalist. I would have thought you couldn't stand it.
But
to be honest. But then,
I like anything that's just like the care given to something. Like, this doesn't have the most amount of care, but it is I like it when he does like a little mini movie. Like, this is one of his longest ones. I think Alcatraz and this are the longest. Sort of keeps to the same premise the whole time. It's not one long shot, but one long story. It's
like 20 minutes, I think, all in all, isn't it?
Yeah,
the whole
pretty much.
Final bit.
Like, it's a TV episode, just that one bit. And you spent $1 million on the special then. In '88, it's basically $50 million now, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
Also, I missed, though, was this in the original broadcast? There's no little thank you letter to the audience. I'd like to thank the good people of Clorox and the Bermuda Triangle.
I don't know. Yeah, my understanding. I love a rumor. My understanding is that Clorox used to pay for the TV specials.
Okay.
So they would pay for all the cost of what it costs to make a TV show, and they were a sponsor. They were with him for many years. But I mean, it worked, because the first time I went to America and I went into Walmart, I was like, "Holy shit, that's Clorox! Look at that! That's that advert on the Copperfield spray. I didn't even know what Clorox was.
No.
Until I went into Walmart.
It's like when
the
you
first
see the
time.
shaving cream from Jurassic Park, you're like, that's real.
Yeah, so if the board of Clorox are listening to this, your money was well spent. I would never buy any other kind of bleach. I think it's bleach.
It is equivalent to like, and now I'm trying to afford Darren Brown's Russian roulette, brought to you by Toilet Duck. Like it wouldn't really.
It is.
Oh, what a time that would have been. So we should do, Mr. Richard Young, we should do the rating system. I've had no thoughts on what it should be. I normally try and see in the conversation what comes up the most. Is it Weird Little Ducklings? Is it
nuts and bolts out of 10?
Yeah, is it nuts and bolts out of 10?
Yeah. Is it? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it should, rather than it be out of 10 this week, maybe it should be like, you know, like a clapometer that goes up.
Yeah.
But it should be like those black and yellow stripes that are on the curtain on the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
For me, look, I'm a big fan. I absolutely love this special. Came along at the perfect time for me. I was 10 years old the first time I saw this, and it was absolutely. I watched it over and over and over and over again. Loved it. It is impossible for me to look at it objectively through a 2025 set of eyes and go, it's just great. I love it. For me personally, I give it 10 out of 10 because I just think it's just him doing big, crazy stuff 10 years into his journey. And like I said, the most amazing thing is what's going to come over the next few years. The building implosion, the vanishing of the Orient Express, the flying. These are all still to come. So I would give it 10 out of 10. I'm interested to know what you would give it out of 10. What would you
I would give it out of 10. Well, the death saw and him being like sucked into that pyramid, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Let's say that.
Yes.
And the music choices. Like, it's not my favourite. Then again, I don't know what my favourite is, but this is definitely the bottom of the list. If we were doing, one day we should do a tier ranking, and there's S tier, A, B, C, D, all the way down.
I have thought about doing that.
We should do that. Do it as like a bunch of us.
But again, like, the most amazing thing would be to get him to do that.
That's true.
Find out what he rates. He was there. Like, so he knows. The other interesting thing that would just be fascinating to speak to him about is, like, what impact did they have on his careers? Does he remember what special it was when he went from doing one show a night in a theatre to being able to do a matinee in the afternoon, or an 11 o'clock show, an afternoon show, and an evening show? Like that, I'd love to know what things it was through his amazing career where the business side of what he was doing just boomed.
Yeah. Because back then it would have been overnight as well. Like, it would be like, that went out last night, and now the phone's ringing off the hook, or you've just booked a whole tour.
Yeah, I mean, was it the Statue of Liberty, or was it the fact when he did the Learjet, or maybe it didn't come till a few years later when he's doing Alcatraz, and I don't know, but I would love to know. There's so many things still to speak to him about. I'm not sure he thinks it's as interesting as it truly is, actually. I think for him, he's just lived it, and it's like, well, whatever. But I know I'm not alone. There are thousands of fans out there that are now today professional magicians as a result of him that cannot get enough of finding out all the behind-the-scenes stuff of all these amazing specials and all those tours that he did, the 4 world tours and all the shows in Vegas, you know, the museum and stuff. We don't really know much about the story of the museum. We just know he's got all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happened. It's where did it start?
Yeah, what's
when
driving
did it
him
suddenly
to
go
do this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you must be on that Facebook DC fans group. And there's a bunch, they're all mad on there, aren't they?
Absolutely.
But a lot of them are not magicians.
The best fans are, right?
Yeah, but a lot of them are not
that
magicians.
is true.
They might know a couple of things, but certainly not sleight of hand based things. And often if you see them speculating about an illusion method, you're like, these guys know nothing. And I know more than them. Just from glancing at an illustration, I'd know more. And he's still got huge fans.
I genuinely didn't realise this, but I mean, when I did that podcast with him 6 years ago now, I never thought, because it had never happened with any of the other podcasts I made, was overnight I became a bit of a celebrity with his fans.
Ah, yeah.
I was getting all these messages, and I was like, I thought it was just magicians listening to this. But of course, they found out about it too.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, so I was suddenly getting messages which I'd never had in any of the 100 podcasts before, from normal people who had come across it and wanted to ask a couple more questions. And you just have to be obviously careful because you're a magician and not get into conversations about methods and anything like that, because that's why they love it, because he amazed them.
Yeah, they don't really know. Even if they feel like they do, they're like, he gave me that special feeling when I was 10 and he vanished and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
I think what I'd love to do, if that's okay, is just to finish this off, is just to play again. I think it'd be a nice way to end. Is just to play again for everybody right now. It's 4 minutes from that podcast where I speak to him about this TV special. We've mentioned a few things as we've gone through this, but you probably haven't listened to this podcast for a number of years. But I think it would be perfect to finish this podcast with the words of the great man himself talking about this TV special and his memories of it. I think that'd be a good ending. What do you think?
I agree fully. And also thanks to the good people at Clorox.
Thank you, Clorox. We literally wouldn't have done it without you.
No.
I want to talk about the Bermuda Triangle. I'm going to explain why. First of all, as a kid, it's the first TV special of yours I saw. Wow. It was shown on ITV in the UK just after Christmas. Obviously, I'm a kid. I VHS record it, watch it over and over again. Absolutely loved it. Then years later, I hear you say in an interview that it's kind of not one of your favourite things. And I mean, to quote you, you've said it was a bad career move. Why? I thought it was brilliant.
What did you like about it?
I loved
What do you remember about it?
I remember the whole storyline the way through the special, in terms of you explaining. I didn't even know what the Bermuda Triangle was. I was a kid. So you pitched the whole idea of, what it is and its history, and then you plant the seed. Obviously, I didn't realise at the time of this boat that disappeared. I understand it was one of the most expensive things ever made at the time. It was over $1 million to create the final bit, and it was filmed out, in water. I just loved the production of it. The vanish in the pyramid, I still think is one of your most stunning vanishes you've done. Second only to the portal vanish, which I think is the best one. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, but I'm interested to know why you don't feel that way about it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the whole show is filled with really great, innovative moments. On that special, death saws on that special.
Amazing.
And that's a keeper. That one's a keeper.
Yeah. There's lots with Webster.
We did baby Websters. We did the chicken, the duck, and the chicken.
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
There's our version, which has been stolen also. In different Got Talent shows. We spent a lot of time to make that thing work. The idea of switching the heads. Poultry in Motion, horrible title. What else was on that show?
Oh, there's some montages, aren't there, where you're out on a boat, and also you do Don Wayne's floating match as well, which is amazing and looks like a camera trick again, but isn't. Mm-hmm. You kind of really get into these montage ideas where you're actually out on location in this special, which doesn't become a regular thing on many of the specials. Is there a reason why? They're little movies, aren't they?
It's a place to put stuff that you think is good in its own way, but you can't build a whole routine around it. There's a little floating, me floating on the beach with the vanishing feet and me floating and the sunglasses appearing on, maybe not the greatest. But I think, but you're right, the pyramid thing, it looks good, right? That's a good moment.
It's incredible.
That's a good thing. There was the production of the boat. It was real torture. My friend Kevin Bright and I almost had a fist fight. It was Kevin Bright who created Friends, a little show called Friends. He was a producer on that. We got into almost fisticuffs there because I was a big jerk, and the tension was really high, and so much lawsuits and money and putting pylons in the ocean, and just really, it was just not a pleasant. And bugs, never add water. When you ever add water to anything, any movie director will tell you, if you add water to it, it's disaster. If you do anything outside in the water, it's 4 times the money and everything can go wrong. And that was the situation here. There was moments of it I think were good, but overall, it was not one of my favorites.
What point in the process did you realise that you weren't happy with it? Was it when you sat down and did the edit, or was it before you got there? What was
being there and working on the water and losing light and not being able to get everything shot, and having storytelling that wasn't as clear as you want it to be, and the boat not looking big enough in my taste for all the work that we were doing. And it's just, again, you're only as good as you dare to be bad. I read that once. You're only as good as you dare. So always dare to be really bad. And sometimes you're bad.